I don't feel no ways tired, Lord. I come too far from where I started from. And nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. And I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me.
Juneteenth means freedom, and I mean for everybody.
A day to remember.
Without a past, you have no future.
A day to celebrate.
It's not uncommon to see a Juneteenth festival in Oakland or a backyard Juneteenth barbecue in Milwaukee. It's what we do.
A day to honor our ancestors.
I speak to people all the time about how it must have felt to be taken away from your family, stolen, and never go back home.
This is the Power of Juneteenth, a BET News special. Hello and welcome. I'm CBS News correspondent Jerika Duncan. Thank you so much for joining us on this important day as we celebrate the significance, the history, and the meaning of Juneteenth. Let's start by shining a light on a remarkable woman who has done more than anyone to elevate Juneteenth as a national holiday. Here's my colleague, Nicole Killian.
At 95 years young,
Put it that way.
Opal Lee shows no signs of slowing down. Her life story has become legendary for her unwavering mission as the grandmother of Juneteenth.
At what point did you decide that you wanted Juneteenth to be a national holiday?
I felt like I hadn't done enough. I was 89 years old when I got to thinking about it. I just decided.
So it wasn't until then, it wasn't until 89?
No. Mm-mm. I was old as dirt. I decided that maybe if a little old lady, 89 years old, in tennis shoes, walking from Fort Worth to Washington, somebody would pay attention.
And they did when she started Opal's Walk. Trekking 2.5 miles at a time. She delivered 1.5 million signatures to Congress, clinching victory when legislation passed last year. It was signed by President Biden at the White House, establishing Juneteenth National Independence Day, long before the former school teacher and mother of 4 launched a national campaign. Her recognition of Juneteenth came at an early age.
When I was a little one and we lived in Marshall, Texas, we'd go to the fairground. There'd be games and food and food and food. I'm here to tell you. It was like Christmas.
But June 19th wasn't always a celebratory occasion. In 1939, when Opal was 12 years old, her family moved to a home at this corner in Fort Worth that was torched by a white mob.
The paper says there were some 500 folk who gathered. They drug the furniture out and burned it. Burned the house too. My parents never, ever talked to us about it. Not ever.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. They accepted what had happened.
Acceptance, but for her mother, not defeat.
After that house was destroyed, she worked untiringly till she got another one. I say that maybe I got my tenacity from her. I've got a long way to go.
That tenacity is now driving Opal to erect a new national museum on her own land dedicated to telling the story of Juneteenth.
People think it's a black thing when it's not. It's not a Texas thing. It's not that. Juneteenth means freedom, and I mean for everybody.
For those who come after you, what do you want them to know when they hear the name Opal Lee?
I want them to know that the little old lady dreamed, and they can dream too, and that dreams can come to fruition.
Coming up next, we celebrate Juneteenth with food, music, and history. Welcome back to the Power of Juneteenth. For generations, friends and family have gathered to celebrate Juneteenth with food. And one author has paid tribute to Juneteenth's rich culinary traditions in a groundbreaking new cookbook. Here's BET's Mark Lamont Hill.
No Juneteenth celebration is complete without a cookout. And that's where Nicole Taylor comes in. Taylor's new book, Watermelon and Redbirds, a cookbook for Juneteenth and Black celebrations, is the first major cookbook solely devoted to Juneteenth recipes.
So many Black food writers and cookbook authors are often asked the question, where's your mac and cheese recipe? What page is your fried chicken recipe?
They have a very specific idea what Black cooking looks like.
Exactly. And so I just really was dedicated to the idea of being free. And being free meant doing whatever I want in terms of recipes in this cookbook. Yes, the recipes are rooted in the African American table, but I give you a twist. And it's so funny because sometimes people say, you're not from Texas, you don't need to be celebrating Juneteenth. And so, you know, when we move, when Black people move, we take our traditions with us. So it's not uncommon to see a Juneteenth festival in Oakland or to see a backyard Juneteenth barbecue in Milwaukee. It's what we do. We take our traditions with us.
Of course, one of those Juneteenth food traditions is barbecued ribs, alongside arguably the most revered dish at any Black celebration.
If you get the potato salad wrong, everybody gonna be skeptical of everything else. I ain't gonna try nothing else. The potato salad ain't right.
Potato salad is a way to connect us to so many people in our families. You should make sure that someone else is standing over the person in your family making the potato salad and taking notes. That's how you keep the circle unbroken.
And no Juneteenth cookout can be complete without the world's greatest thirst quencher, lemonade, but with an ancestral remix.
This, I like to say, is our connection to Black people across the diaspora. During the transatlantic slave trade, that tradition of West African red drink came right to the Americas, and you find on so many American plantations that at celebrations and special times that enslaved people made strawberry lemonade.
I thought strawberry lemonade was new, but it actually goes back to our ancestors.
It is our total connection to our ancestors.
I love that.
For dessert on our Juneteenth buffet, Taylor skipped the pound cake and that other red layer cake you might expect to see.
Red food coloring was not invented until like 1940-ish. So traditionally at the Juneteenth table, you would see a chocolate cake. So this is my nod to the traditional Juneteenth dessert table. What do you think?
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord. Yeah, this wouldn't even make it to the table. I bring this right back to the crib when nobody else get to try nothing.
Juneteenth is about celebrating our past, present, and future, even during troubling times.
We have suffered a mass shooting.
I want to cry right now, actually. So it's painful. Yeah, it's real painful.
How hard is it, though, to take those traditions with you in the midst of everything going on in the world? How do you celebrate freedom when people are getting shot by police? How do you celebrate freedom when there are these people in Buffalo tragically killed in a supermarket? How do we do that?
For generations, Black people were always just opposing sorrow with joy. And when I see Buffalo, and I get that feeling deep inside of me of just like sadness and anger, I'm also joyful when I see how Black people in Buffalo, all people in Buffalo, but particularly Black people, are holding space. And the way we hold space is, there's the guy out there frying the fish, right in front of Tops grocery store. There's the person out there passing out water or selling water. It's what we do. We do in the time of sorrow. We tend to celebrate. We tend to find that glimmer of joy.
And according to Taylor, that joy can most often be found on Juneteenth in the comfort of friends, family, and food.
Nicole, first of all, congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
Also, happy Juneteenth. We got to do an
Cheers.
official Juneteenth toast with the strawberry lemonade. When the camera's off, I'm gonna put a little something extra in it. But
Me too.
Oh, there we go. Happy Juneteenth.
Happy Juneteenth.
Coming up, music and the meaning of Juneteenth.
Dear sir,
I am anxious to learn about my sisters.
He understood the importance of bringing together the branches of your family tree.
It's no longer just pieces to the puzzle. They have the puzzle.
He gotta be smiling. I didn't make it, but they did.
Welcome back to the Power of Juneteenth. This is a day of celebration, but also a day of reflection of our past. Recently, my colleague James Brown sat down with renowned historian Henry Louis Gates Jr. to discuss the essential history of Juneteenth.
Juneteenth was not embraced as a national Black holiday for a long, long time, but it was kept alive by Black people in Texas. And that's what's so sweet about it. Our people have been hungry for holidays, hungry for tradition, hungry for stories about Black history.
Because
without a past, you have no future. Did you like Harvard?
Perhaps no one has done more to inform Americans of their past and in turn their future than Henry Louis Gates Jr. By day, he is a professor and director of the Hutchins Center for African and African American Research at Harvard. By night, he is the host and producer of the PBS genealogy show, Finding Your Roots, as well as countless documentaries on Black history.
These are the big three in the history of freedom of our enslaved ancestors. The Emancipation Proclamation, signed on January 1st, 1863, Juneteenth, June 19th, 1865, and then finally the ratification of the 13th Amendment on December 6, 1865, which is what finally and ultimately abolished the institution of slavery. One of the myths about Juneteenth is that nobody in Texas had heard about it, but there are two reasons that many historians think that Black people knew about the Emancipation Proclamation too. One is because of the proverbial grapevine. So there was this miraculous way for enslaved people to communicate plantation to plantation and state to state. But the second factor is that because Texas was removed from the main action of the Civil War, many slaveholders moved to Texas for safety, and they took their enslaved people with them. Those enslaved people would have known about the Emancipation Proclamation by and large and would have told other enslaved people. But no one could enforce it because the Union did not capture territory then.
Back in Galveston, Texas, the formerly enslaved began marking their freedom with the celebration 1 year later in 1866 and have been celebrating Juneteenth ever since. As far as Professor Gates is concerned, the details of Juneteenth are less important than the power of its message.
There's a kind of poetic magic in that story, a kind of comfort, a kind of retribution, a kind of belated administering of justice that appeals to all of us. Juneteenth is one of the first holidays that Black people created on their own. And of the holidays that they created in slavery times, Juneteenth is the one that survived and is now a national holiday.
Isn't it important for all Americans to understand that Juneteenth ought to be embraced by all Americans?
For a country built upon the love of freedom, any manifestation of the enjoyment of freedom should be celebrated by all our countrymen. Let's hope for that day.
Coming up next, the power of Juneteenth in music. Welcome back. I'm now joined by my co-host, my daughter, Journey, who's also been learning about Juneteenth. So, Journey, what does Juneteenth mean to you?
Juneteenth means a celebration of Black people and our strength. I love Juneteenth.
That's awesome. So do I. Well said. Well, that wraps up our show, but before we leave you, we'd ask Grammy-nominated artist Tank and the Bangas to share with us what Juneteenth means to them. Enjoy.
Happy Juneteenth!
In a city known for its history, its culture, and its music, there is a band whose sound captures them all. New Orleans' own Tank and the Bangas.
Village women, tribal children, native language, something's missing.
We traveled to the group's rehearsal space in the Big Easy for an intimate Juneteenth performance and to talk to the band about the significance of the holiday, a holiday that they didn't always celebrate themselves.
We didn't celebrate Juneteenth growing up, and I think it's honestly I think it's horrible.
It wasn't in any books that I read, anything like that, high school, college, anything like that. So when I found out about it, I was super surprised, and it made me do a little more digging as well, man, but it's super surprising.
Our song, Stolen Fruit, is the most perfect Juneteenth song ever. I mean, it's the second verse especially. Your roots be golden, your roots be golden.
Your new springs forth. All that was stolen now can be reborn.
Like Your Roots Be Golden, #1, is about where we came from. It's just a place that everybody came from. You know, no matter, even though you're in this insane situation, you still come from the most special and most royal and first place. And the hook to that song is, I reminisce the sunny day, I might try to run away like sitting in a sweet escape. Oh, I just might fly away. And it just takes me back to somebody being someplace that they were brought to and not grew up in, you know, someplace they had no business being, and just wanting to just go. I speak to people all the time about how it must have felt to be taken away from your family, stolen, and never go back home. We go overseas all the time. I can't imagine something terrible happening and me never being able to come back home. And that's what happened to everybody. Never being able to go back home. Let's bring out the fireworks. Let's break out the barbecue. Right. Let's make this a national holiday the way that 4th of July is celebrated. Let's really tell our children what happened. Let's really celebrate Juneteenth.
Good morning, sunshine. Planted somewhere new. Time cannot rewind. Place from which you grew, oh, why?
The power of Juneteenth is remembering what justice really is and what it should be like and what it should look like and feel like. It is Black joy personified. It is freedom. It is one step towards a better future that we had than yesterday. That's what the power of Juneteenth is.
Your roots be golden. Your new springs forth. All that was stolen now can be reborn. Oh, I reminisce the sunny day. run away.